Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 14. Is it 14? 14 of these, and I think we've done 5 in a row, which is, it's got to be a personal record. Welcome to Vandals. Again, I don't really know what episode number we're on, but I can tell you that we're here. And I have a special guest with me right now, a guy who, honestly, I'm really excited to pick his brain. I feel like you and I don't get to chat a whole lot. Finesse, how are you, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well. I'm doing well. We were just talking about this before while we were doing the audio test. You currently have cats sitting on you right now.
Yeah, she just went somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, she's usually on me. So the little one, Luna, is on me all the time, and then the other one is usually just doing his own thing, Levi. So
They're such fascinating creatures. I had Vandy on the show last week, and he actually swore that his cats were aliens of some sort. Would you say your cats are Can you say cats are normal? Is that even a thing?
I don't know. I mean, this is the first. Like, I've never had a dog before. It's like
Sure.
I haven't had other pets before. As cats are my first pets. First like real things I have to take care of, other than myself. So yeah, they've definitely made my life better for sure.
All right, let's jump into it. And listen, Finesse, we're going to jump into the deep end. I'm going to come in hot right off the bat.
Oh shit. Okay.
Oh, yeah. You and the rest of your team seem to be really comfortable donning the role of a villain, right? The team everyone loves, but also simultaneously seems to love to hate. Would you say that villain is a fair title for you and your squad?
Felt that way at Iceland for sure. Not so much before that, but it just feels like all these fan bases are locked in now.
Yeah.
Onto the Sentinels had such a good start to the game. TSM had such a good start to the game. They already had such a big fan base, and everyone just hopped on those trains, man, and they just have not gotten off. I have to respect that. And so it's hard. It's hard to kind of, like, where do you get the fans from? Everyone's either 100 Thieves, TSM, Sentinels, Cloud9. So, at the end of the day, like, we don't have as much of a, like, I guess, brand name, whatever you want to call it, like fan base, I guess, as those orgs, and especially specifically in this game. So, I mean, it's fine. It's just sometimes it's a little annoying when, you're consistently representing North America, and people, you just constantly hear like, oh, we'd rather have C100 Thieves there. You want to see the CC9 here or whatever. But I know it's just loyal fan bases. Not much you could really do about it. We don't take it too seriously.
Sure. Well, actually, have you seen a change from when you guys transitioned from Envy to OpTic, and did that shift at all?
I mean, yeah, to some degree, but it's
Sure.
more people just kind of seeing that we're performing consistently and slowly kind of being, I guess slowly accepting us for being a good team and like, having good personalities on our team and being personable and stuff. So it's definitely a lot. It was definitely a little bit of a change going in from Envy to OpTic, because when we were on Envy, we had that terrible grand final. That was our last big event.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Champs. Sorry, Champs was the last big event that we had with them, and that was obviously a group stage exit from us. So, that was our like last memory at Envy, which sucks because we wish we would just delivered that title. And I think it was Masters 3. So, kind of sucks to be able to go out like that. But yeah, coming into OpTic for sure, we had a lot of support going in from like the COD community, from the organization, and to be able to, bring home a title now feels like really, really good.
Yeah, the infrastructure that they have is there, and if for anyone who's been around the esports space for a long time, OpTic's it's a household name, right? You go all the way back. But I want to touch on Reykjavik. You mentioned it earlier. So after you win, right? You guys are hoisting the trophy. There's this really cool moment on the stage, and there's an interview happening on the stage, and they go down the line, and they get to you. And they ask you, they ask you specifically, okay. What do you have to say to the doubters? And your response was, keep doubting us. It fuels us, which is dope, right? Like, it's, again, you've got that like anime villain vibe that everyone loves. But then you want to step further. And this is what I want to press on you a little bit here.
The analysts, huh?
Yep. I was sitting on the desk too, and you did it. And, even if you go back and listen to the interview, you can hear laughter. I think it was from Ball. I don't remember exactly who it was. But yeah, you called out the analyst desk specifically. Would you say Actually, yeah, I'm gonna let you take that where you want, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, so I did that because from the start of the event, all I saw on that analyst desk specifically, so not the commentator's desk,
Hmm.
but the analyst desk, um, was mainly just a lot of like NA, not hate, but EU bias is
Mm.
what I would go with, or like other regional bias. Like if Zeta came into the picture, if you're talking about Loud, they just were like, oh, Loud is just gonna be incredible. Like, how do you know, bro?
Yeah,
They just
they hadn't
had these
played.
takes. They had these absurd takes, like, oh, this team's gonna be insane. I'm such a big fan of the way they play, all this, and I'm okay with people not saying that about us. It's more so have our side, like, be on our side one time, bro. And it was literally every single match. Like I would go and rewatch like the VOD or whatever, and like I'd watch the whole segment. And every time for like 4 matches straight, playing against different regions, I would just still see the same comments about us. Like,
Mm.
oh, they're not that. NA, just like this whole NA, I guess negative bias towards North America for some reason. And
Sure.
I don't know what NA did to these people. I'm not really sure. I swear, if I genuinely believe that if it was like Sentinels instead of us, those things would not have been said. Just
Mm.
because they had won Iceland prior or whatever. But
Hmm.
I don't understand. We've consistently delivered results, and it seems like these people just forgot that, or just don't know that we did that or whatever. And we've definitely delivered more results than the teams that we're most of the time playing against.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah.
so it's confusing to me when I see these comments, these takes that, we're not going to perform well, or we're not going to, we're probably going to choke, or blah, blah, blah. And even if they were right, I would still think it's ridiculous. Like, even if we didn't win Iceland, I would still be like, I don't understand. We just came second at Berlin, literally not even 4 months ago. Yeah, we had a champs exit in groups or whatever, but we had a teammate that had COVID
Yeah.
with all of the symptoms of COVID. It
Hmm.
wasn't just like, oh, I have COVID, and then just you're still playing. He
Yeah.
had all of the symptoms because they're one of our star players. And even then, we choked the game versus X10. We were up, what, 9-3,
Yeah.
and we choked it away. So it's like all credit to them, but at the end of the day, like we still showed a good. I feel like we've consistently gone to these big events and shown that we're capable. So to be told that you're not, or to be consistently have this like this aura around you that like, oh, maybe you're not, or like that consistent doubt that kind of sets in when people say these things, it weirds me out a little bit. It makes me feel like they don't know what they are saying. And
Sure.
that's why I called them out, because I feel like they need to do a little bit more research on on things before they say it out loud to a larger audience,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. No, hmm. I'm trying to figure out how much more I press you here. If we go any
Huh?
further, I'm trying to figure out if I press you a little bit more, and if we go any further on
I mean,
this.
it's the thing, I don't hate anybody. It's
No,
not like
no,
I
no.
hate these
Sure.
people.
Right.
Yeah, it's a professional. I understand what they're saying, why they're saying it, why they hype up these teams. I get all that.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
just so consistently against us. It confuses me. That's mainly the reason why I called the analyst desk out specifically, because it it just confused me, the things that were being said, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Would you say, with all of that in mind,
Yeah.
would you say that you, in general, often disagree? Not and I want to be careful about how I ask this because I think it's very nuanced. It's not necessarily the way that pundits stack you up against the field, you being OpTic specifically.
Yeah.
Um, would you say that you often disagree with the assessment of OpTic in general?
Yeah, I
Mm.
would say so. It's
Okay.
just this common bias that's now become this, I don't know, I guess just this thing where people just don't think we're capable still for some reason. Now maybe because we
Mm-hmm.
won, but just even before that, it just felt like there was always this shroud of doubt around us, and not so much on other teams. That's what didn't make sense to me, because like this
Yeah.
team hasn't even been to a big event.
Mm-hmm.
We have multiple times. We've had a good result and a bad result, and yet, and you have more content on us. You have way more results.
Yep.
That you have way more actual material on us to be able to make a concrete decision about where we're gonna end up being, like how we're gonna match up versus other teams. And yet, for some reason, the other side is always picked.
Mm.
So that always is what bothered me, because I'm like, where's your analysis coming from? it just feels like it's just this internal bias that they have
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
against not against us specifically, but just against North America, and it confuses the shit out of me.
Let's
You know?
move. Yeah, let's move on to another part of that interview in particular. We'll transition
Sure.
off from this point of it, and you and I can talk more later.
Yeah.
Uh, there was another quote from that stage, from that moment. It was Chet who specifically said, again, how are you going to approach now that you've won this tournament? Something to the effect of, "We're grinders. We're going to go back to work, and we're going to abuse Fade for sure." I
Yeah.
think there were a lot of people who were pretty high on Fade, but it's been interesting to see how North America has adopted, or really in a lot of ways, not fully adopted her. What are your thoughts on her current tuning and where she sits in the meta?
So early on, it just felt like because Silva's just been such a staple for how long now? Probably this
Forever, yeah.
2 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to get rid of an agent like that, even after the nerfs. But when that nerf came in and people kind of were like, okay, like that first like 2 weeks you play with Sova after the nerf, you're like, okay, it's very clear there's an obvious nerf here. Like this is
Yeah.
actually like hurts the agent a lot. So we're like, okay, let's test out Fade, and that's where I feel like Fade kind of just overpowers Sova now.
Hmm.
Just very clearly at this point, it's very obvious that just her whole kit is just very, very, very strong. Even
Hmm.
the root is just extremely strong. The ult is strong. It's really hard to argue against her now. So it makes sense to me why people are implementing her specifically in Europe right now. I think it's way more in Europe than in North America, but
Yeah.
I know Cloud9, Zeppa plays her a lot. There's a lot of teams. Com in our last match played her a lot. So it's
Hmm.
like we're definitely and we play her as well. So she's definitely being implemented now like consistently on at least 3 to 4 maps, which I mean makes sense to me.
Yeah, Ghosts are another team that are running her, and I think they're doing some really cool stuff
Yeah.
with her. You compared Fade a lot to Sova, and I think that makes sense, right? Off of the nerfs, there are some similarities between Kit, so I definitely see the parallels. Would you say that she is as strong as you were just describing compared to, say, a KO or a Breach or a Sky even?
I think she's stronger than Sky. Yeah, I think KO is still the best initiator in the game.
Hmm.
Breached is map dependent in my opinion.
Hmm.
So I guess I'll give Fade like the pass there over Breach. Breach you kind of need to have a specific. You can't just have Breach and then just any other comp. You know, you have to have like
Yeah.
Neon with Breach, or you have to have like a Jet with Breach, or you know what I mean. You can't have.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a set comp around Breach
Mm-hmm.
basically. Whereas Fade you could just throw in and be okay.
Hmm.
Um, because she's an info character, right? Because of
Sure.
the haunt, the prowlers, which Breach doesn't provide any of that. Usually, you just kind of need map control with Breach, and then you hit the site with Breach. So
Yeah.
it feels to me like, in general, I would say KO number one, and then I would say Fade right now for me number two initiator wise, and then
Dang.
but she's pretty close to Breach, I would say,
Sure.
and I
Sure.
think
Sure. Sure.
Sky's getting a little. She's been moved away a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Four strong legs. I'm sure he's gonna go down to his grave talking about Sky. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Listen, since Iceland, you've run Fade. Obviously, you've run Neon. You were really one of the pioneers in North America
yeah.
of Neon. You've also run some Yoru. How do you find time to lean into innovation in such a tightly condensed schedule where you're not only preparing individually, you're not only improving yourselves, but you're also trying to prepare for the team on the other side week after week?
Just Chet.
Mm.
Chet's just a huge nerd, man. He literally just as soon as we finish a match, he's literally already focused on the next match. He's focused on what maps we're gonna play. He's already focused on um, what we need to work on as a team, which for the most part, to be fair, like going well for us is we're really good on the fundamentals.
Yeah.
So when we review games, a lot of the times it's very tiny mistakes that cause crucial landslides for us. For example, versus EG, there was multiple rounds that we should have and could have won if
Hmm.
it wasn't for one little tiny mistake that we made. And it's very rare that we make those kinds of mistakes. We're very good at fixing them. So he is in Chet focuses a lot on, okay, what can we do comp wise to throw these teams off, or what can we do not to get anti-stratted, because it's very easy to anti-strat in this game. So he's just very good at kind of moving right into the next match, thinking about, okay, like these are ideas I have, let's just implement them, instead of being like scared about it, feeling like, oh, maybe these players won't be able to like learn in time, blah blah blah. He kind of just has faith in us that we'll be able to learn the agents that he provides or like his comps or whatever. So we kind of just creates the comp or watches a team and goes, wow, this comp was really good. I watched this team run it. Let's just use it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just implement it. And it's just a lot of work that he puts into not just strategy, comp creation, but also just creating, adding his own spin. Like, say we take a comp from someone else, he'll add his own spin to it instead of just copying everything, which I feel a lot of North American teams, we knew when we won Iceland that teams were going to kind of mimic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It's more so that I feel like people don't know why we run the comps we run, and
Mm-hmm.
we know why we run the comps we run. We understand what the reason for it is, why it's good,
Right.
and why it's so. I feel like a lot of these teams that copy sometimes don't know the why,
Mm.
and that's a big issue because you're kind of at that point just going, okay, he did this, so I will do it too. Not I'm doing this because this makes sense in this particular situation.
Yeah.
Very big difference between those two things. So I just think Chet, for sure, ever since we implemented him and added him, it's just been consistent innovation from him. So yeah, I would give full credit to him on that.
I want to go back to something that you just said. So let's go back to Sentinel's heyday, right? And there are actually so many things I want to unpack from what you just said. Let's go back to Sentinel's heyday. It felt to me from the outside looking in like there were a lot of teams that were trying to, not all teams, but there were a lot of teams that were trying to mimic what Sentinels was doing.
Yeah,
And there may have been some similarities in that they're just trying to adopt what they're doing without necessarily understanding why. Now we're
yeah,
seeing, as you mentioned, a lot of teams do the same to you, right? There are a lot of very similar fracture comps that I'm seeing come out that include a KO, a breach, and a neon, and a lot of
yep.
these other things. Would you say that the North American competition and talent as a whole has significantly improved because teams are trying to mimic what you're doing?
I don't know if it's because they're mimicking what we're doing. I just think after we did what we did, it kind of set an example of anything can work if you put the thought into the comps that you try to run.
Mm.
You have to be bold in
Mm-hmm.
this game. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot play meta. You just can't. You're gonna lose. You're gonna eventually lose. You can't. If you stay on the meta or behind it, you are going to lose. You have to stay ahead. And I think that's why North America seems better this time around. And I think maybe they got inspiration from us doing the things we did in Iceland. I'm not gonna, I would love to
Right,
take the
right.
credit for
Sure.
all the whole region, but
Sure.
I'm not gonna I have no idea.
Right.
But I just think seeing how bold we were maybe inspired some players or teams to be like, okay, well, you know what I mean? This is a good example to learn from. These guys added Neon. These guys added Yoru. These guys are adding every agent that comes out. They've added Chamber instantly. So it's like, at the end of the day, you just have to stay ahead. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where North America now has kind of moved away from how Sentinels was, where they were kind of just, and for a year and a half, the same comps.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To now, kind of the last 6 months, I feel like anytime I play a scrim, it's always some random shit I'm seeing, which is good. Like
Yeah.
I like seeing fucking Viper on Ascent. Like
Yeah.
where'd that come from? But I love seeing stuff like that because I feel like it not only gives us a new look to kind of think about, it also helps us with as a region. It helps us kind of innovate and catch up to some of the better regions.
Yeah. I mean, this idea of a higher tide raises every ship, right? And that
Yeah,
seems to be
exactly.
all of North America.
Yeah,
In this case, I want to go back to something else that you said. It was around the fundamentals. I think when you think about your old NV roster, right, pre-EA,
yeah,
you guys consistently were top four, fourth, flirting with fourth, right, top three, top four, somewhere in there. And it may not have been the flashiest roster, but dang, man, you guys were consistent. Like the fundamentals were there. I remember a
yeah.
couple of times saying you guys were probably the strongest rifling team in the world. It was just so solid. I want to go back to those fundamentals because do you feel like that is one of the key things that unlocks what is now OpTic to be able to try with Neon, to be able to try with Yoru, even things like that?
Yes, you need solid fundamentals. You need players that understand what to do, when to do it,
Mm,
why they're doing it. The why is the biggest one
yeah.
because a lot of players that don't understand the why of things just do it and then don't know when or like the situation in which to implement those things. So in my opinion, yeah, fundamentals is step one always. You have to master fundamentals and kind of understand rotations, understand why players are doing what they're doing, kind of have a map in your head.
Yeah.
And if you're I feel like it's the difference between a good player and a great player. A good player can have good mechanics, but if he doesn't have that instinctual play, that map in his head of exactly how the opponent is rotating around, that's the difference. Because a great player would know that and does know that. And I feel like I'm surrounded by great players who have that capability. And so it makes my life a lot easier because I don't have to micromanage as much. It makes Chet's life a lot easier because he could just implement any comp he wants and people will just go, okay, and just play.
Yeah.
Instead of crying like, oh, I don't know how to play this agent. Like I don't, you know what I mean? But we'll
Yeah.
have discussions like, bro, this is a dog shit agent. Like I'll say those things to him and we'll have those kinds of discussion. But at the end of the day, those are healthy discussions to have,
Hmm.
with your coach, with your players, and we come to decisions together because everyone has a good mind for the game, which you have to have 5 players that can do that. If you have one player that just isn't there yet, even if the mechanics are there, if that player hasn't caught up fully when it comes to like the why of what you're doing, you're not gonna succeed, I feel like.
Well, it's hard to argue against that philosophy, right? You guys are sitting at the top of the world, so I mean, who's going to tell you no? Uh,
Yeah.
you did just take a slight notch down, though, right? Let's go
Yeah.
back to the match against Evil Geniuses. They come in hot. They look really good. Potter buff, spams, cheese on Icebox, whatever you want to call it. They're doing
Yeah.
stuff and it's working. What happened in that match against Evil Geniuses?
We definitely came in like prepared. There was no like, oh, we're gonna underestimate this team. We've
Mm-hmm.
never been like that. Trust me, we've lost enough. I've personally lost enough to underdogs to understand that, every match is important. Um, but at the same time, I think when it came to bind, for example, it's
Mm-hmm.
obviously our pick. We're a very, very strong team on it. We play that map again, we win. I'm telling you, we play that map again, we win. It's just this guy, Jawgemo, if you watch the game back, these are mistakes. He's making mistakes, but he's getting rewarded for them. And those 2 rounds in particular, that if I were to like review, if I was his coach and I reviewed the game, I'd be like, what are you doing? But it worked because we didn't clear an angle, right?
Sure.
So all credit to them, all credit to him because it worked out in his favor. But 9 out of 10 times, this is why I'm saying like we have our fundamentals down, but sometimes we slip up on little things, don't clear a specific angle, and
Mm-hmm.
we got punished for it there. So like this guy shot a rocket in a teleporter and he got 2 kills on such. It's literally never happened to me in my whole life. Like, you know what I mean? These kinds of things, you're just, this is Valorant. It's gonna happen to you.
Right.
You just gotta take it on the chin and understand that the other team was just better that day, and they were better. Like even though we were winning 11-7 on that last map,
Mm-hmm.
and weren't able to close. So good on them to be able to beat us. But I still feel like we're at the top of our game. Obviously, I don't feel like we're anywhere near where we want to be,
Sure.
but I still feel like we're ahead in terms of fundamentals. We're ahead comp wise, and still really really confident going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on how the playoff bracket shakes out, you may get another chance at going toe to toe with them. Let's take a step back to the global stage again. You find yourself in a position that a couple of other teams have been in before, right? Think Sentinels, Gambit, Ascend. In that they have won on the international stage. They have that under their belt, and they now have an opportunity before them to repeat.
Yeah.
Why do you think that has been so unattainable for every other team that has been in the position that you're in right now? Why are repeat international wins so difficult?
Too many good teams,
Mm.
and there's too many good looks, and to consistently, like I said, innovate yourself and come in with a whole new. You have to be ahead of the meta. So no team has been able to be ahead of the meta twice in a row.
Sure.
And to do that, competing against as many good teams as you're competing against, you have every region has 3 teams or more that can just beat you.
Mm.
Even us, we feel like, you know what I mean? That can just come in, and if they're on fire, they can beat you. Just how this game is. So if you're ahead of the meta, there's a lower chance that they can beat you, but it's still very few teams I feel like have stayed ahead of the meta.
Yeah.
Um, the first time it was Sentinels, but it was also the fact that they were on fire, like individually. You
Mm-hmm.
just need that combination. You had to be ahead of the meta, and you have to have players that are firing on all cylinders. And we happen to have that this time around. Before that, it was a Gambit, and before that, or
Or
before that
Ascend.
was Ascend,
Mm-hmm.
then Gambit, and before that it was Sentinel. So to me, it's definitely hard to consistently stay ahead of the meta, but if you are able to do it, then yeah, it's possible to repeat for sure.
Would you say all strip away all other extenuating circumstances and just talk about meta specifically and being ahead of the meta? Would you say that that is the number one thing that OpTic has to do if they want to raise the trophy in Copenhagen?
100%. We have to stay ahead of the meta. We have to innovate and be the team that people are still looking at and going, okay, like we're gonna try this because this
Mm,
works so well. Well, like I said, we have the players and the coach. We have all the tools at our disposal to
yeah.
to get that done. So it's just about actually implementing and kind of executing whatever it is we're trying to execute and seeing how it goes. But you have to be bold, like I said in this game. You can't just stay with what you were doing before. It's just too easy to get anti-stratted. It's way too easy to be read. And when a team is able to read you and anti-strat you, it's free. It's just free.
Speaking of reading and anti-stratting, I've been very public in my opinions on this. I think you're known as one of the best IGLs in all of Valorant. Your mid-round calls are world class. In your
Thanks, man.
opinion, yeah, man. In your opinion, what is the differentiating factor between a good IGL and a great one, like a Hall of Fame type beat?
Uh, maybe. Okay, so I've been doing this for 10 years, man. I got a huge advantage on a lot of these guys. I've
Sure.
been doing this a long time, so for me, in-game leading is now just I just I don't get nervous anymore, anxious when I call. I don't feel like I second guess myself. I've passed all that. Like I've already went through those hurdles, mainly in Counter-Strike. So coming into this game, calling has been a very second nature thing to me, just in-game leading wise. The main thing I think I focused on, and I feel like maybe is a difference between what you said, a good an IGL and a great one, is probably just the leadership outside of the game and making sure that your players are motivated, your players aren't sitting there you know, emo like down on themselves if we lose a game
Sure.
or whatever. You kind of have to make sure that you kind of lead by example, but also tell the players what they need to hear at the time, but also mean the things you say. Don't fake it. Just
Mm-hmm.
be real
Mm-hmm.
about like how you feel. And I have never been on a team where I have as much faith as I do in this team.
Mm,
Like when it comes to not just individuals, but how we're able to cohesively work together. When we're even at 75%, it almost feels like no one can beat us.
mm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like we've never even reached our peak yet. So I have too much faith in this roster, so I just vocalize that. And maybe other in-game leaders don't or aren't as good as at doing that, or maybe don't have enough faith in this. I don't know, but
Sure.
I feel like that's what maybe differentiates me is I'm very, very vocal with my teammates about how I feel about the team, what we should be doing, and kind of making sure they listen to me. Just I have enough faith in myself to make sure like, okay, just listen to me and we will win, which maybe less experienced players can't do that because they haven't gone through those hurdles yet.
Yeah, it takes an element of confidence. I mean, and
Yeah.
to be honest with you, man, it takes an element of confidence to drop lines such as "That's what happens when you let
I knew it.
Daddy call."
I knew that was coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a classic. But you're
It's
right.
so funny, yeah.
But where does that? Is it just the 10 years of experience? Where does that come from? To drop a line like that.
I mean, I just say shit. I say way more shit than that. It's just I like to keep it light, the mood in our team for
Yeah,
sure, and we have a lot of banter amongst ourselves, and
yeah.
it's just like fun to have those kinds of conversations and to say the things like that. So it's not just me, like everyone does it. So in that instance, obviously they caught me saying it, but
It was a
we
good
all
one.
just say, yeah, it's just we all say things to each other, and it's just like I said, you have if you I guess exercise a level of comfort
Mm,
within a game with high pressure, I feel like your team embodies that
mm,
slowly as a leader. So if I let my team know I'm confident, I feel like if they're able to embody that, that makes it a world of a difference.
yeah.
Because sometimes you'll have players that go into a game nervous, not for all kinds of reasons. It could be because maybe they didn't have a good, they had sleep well, they didn't eat well, maybe the mouse just doesn't feel right. That happens to me sometimes, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just you have to be able to, as a leader, go into every single game telling your team like we're not going to lose today. Like we're gonna figure it out, and you have to consistently do it throughout the game. So I think for me, I would say that is something I've worked on this last year, year and a half. I would say I'm most proud of myself with uh, working on that specifically as opposed to my actual calling. You know,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just leading in that way.
the intangibles. I think they come
Yeah.
through. I asked this question to Vanity last week. Say, you as you think about Valorant, you think about how young it is, and you've got a lot of young talent coming up. And while they've primarily been highlighted in the forms of like the Asanas and the Cryos and these like young, cracked out kids, there will be a future crop of IGLs, right? Who are going to be
Yeah.
leading, who are going to be calling, who are going to be making the mid round adjustments, intense moments. For those players who may be on the fence, are considering wanting to become an IGL, but perhaps apprehensive because of the pressure that comes with it, or whatever myriad of circumstances there may be, what's your selling point on telling someone that,
On in-game leading,
yeah,
uh, you have to want to do it. I remember when I first started playing 1.6. I wanted to do it. I was like, there's no one that I feel can do this better than me in any of my teams. I genuinely always felt that. I don't give a fuck who I played with. I played with Tarik, I played with Tim, doesn't matter, bro. Like
mm-hmm,
I've always felt like I am the best at that role on my team. And it's not because I have some weird ego. It has nothing to do with that. It's not like that. It's just something I love doing. It's something I'm really, really, really passionate about. It's something I've done in every sport I've ever played. Like literally my whole life, high school, college, I've always been in a leadership role every single time because I feel like that's when I'm at my best personally, and I feel like I could bring the best out of a lot of players when I'm in that role, which I feel like a lot of leaders sometimes don't know how to do, or especially when you're just thrown into the role, when you're forced to do it. But I've
yeah,
never been forced to do any of those roles. I've just wanted to do it. And I think that is the heart of it. You have to want to do it. And if you have that passion, like, okay, I want to be a leader of a team, just run with it. Literally don't second guess yourself at that point. Just do it. You'll fail numerous times. I have for sure. So if I was talking to a younger player and just be like, yo, you're gonna lose a lot before you win, I am the prime example of someone who lost a lot before he won. So it's possible to do it, but you have to be resilient in doing it and not kind of giving up just because, oh, this guy doesn't believe in me or this team doesn't believe in me. It's cringe as hell, but if you believe in yourself, it does not matter at all. You'll get better. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like anything. You'll get better at doing it. And as long as you're self-critical and go, okay, like I need to work on these things. For the longest time for me, I had this issue of I was never wrong. Even when I knew I was wrong, I couldn't admit it to anybody. I just had this too
yep,
much pride, you know?
mm,
And at a certain point, after getting cut from several teams, I had to, for the same reason, I had to finally look like inwards and be like, okay, like this is actually an issue that I need to fix. And I worked towards it. I made sure I stopped arguing all the time. Instead, I started trying to be like, okay, like let me hear your side of it genuinely and actually listened instead of just thinking of the counter argument, before you're even listening to the person. So it's you have to mature with the
mm,
role as well. And that's something I had to learn is you have to kind of mature as a human being to get to be in that role. And I feel like now I'm at my peak, even though I'm 30 now, I feel like I am the best at doing what I do than I've ever been.
yeah, yeah. After hearing some of the truthful wisdom, to be honest, that you just dropped, the humility, the being able to be
Yeah.
also like determined and hungry at the same time, Finesse, a lot of those characteristics that you just described are very evident in you. You come off as very driven, very focused, a man on a mission, some might say. What is it that makes you tick? Or, perhaps a different way to think about it is fast forward a couple years down the road, however many years it is. What sort of legacy do you want to leave behind one day?
I just want to be the best at what I do, if I'm being completely honest. I
Yeah.
just want to be known as the best possible leader to have ever existed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something I think about consciously. It's just if you talk about legacy, that's what I would like. Straight up. Like it sounds selfish. It's just how it is. It's for me, that would be cool as fuck to have that kind of cemented. But I know that to do that, I have to win a lot. Like you have to be like glaive status to get that
Hmm.
kind of, no one can touch you. And that's where I want to be. And I know I'm not even close to there yet. There's plenty of good IGLs, and I have a lot of respect for a lot of IGLs in this game, even some of the younger ones and some of the up and coming ones in North America. You just can't underestimate anybody. And to me, if it's an individual legacy thing, yeah, I would love to be known as the greatest of all time for sure. But as far as in like for me, the most important thing is, or rather what you asked, what makes me tick is it's just my team for sure. Like just to win with this roster. Everything as far as like this is the best roster I've ever created in my entire career. So I want to win as much as I can with this roster.
What would you say is the biggest misconception people have of finesse today?
Um, Misconception, huh? Maybe I mean I can be an asshole sometimes. So maybe, for example, the thing I said to the analysts, right? It comes off
Sure.
like I shitting on them. I hate them. I think they're horrible at their job. That's what it comes off as.
Hmm.
Nah, dude, I respect these people. I respect anyone and everyone that progresses this game because it helps us. It helps us, not just me individually. It helps our team, helps the game. I respect everyone that works in any job, literally. But I will still give my opinion, and I'm very forward about my opinions and without filter sometimes. Um, and that comes off as if I don't like the person, or maybe I'm being too personal about something, or maybe I don't like this person personally or something, but that's never ever been the case. I'm almost always critical because I want things to improve. I want this person to improve. Even if it annoys me, I will still like be very forward about it. But at the end of the day, I want not just the person or in this case the analysts or whatever. I just want improvement overall. So sometimes I might not say things the right way, um, or like say it in the best possible way compared to how like I should or whatever. But I guess I guess yeah. Sometimes maybe people think I'm an asshole, and I'm really not.
That's fair.
That's
That's fair.
yeah.
Last question that I have for you, and then we'll wrap this up. You mentioned the fan base at the beginning, and how the OpTic and Envy faithful have stuck with you, right? You think about the highs and the lows, and while fan bases have kind of gone to their respective camps, you do have a pretty significant one that has to be growing at this point.
Sure.
Are there any closing thoughts that you have for the fans in particular before we go?
Um, I'm happy to have fans, man. It's awesome to have the amount of fans we have. Even like I don't care about comparing us to other people. It's not a big deal. I don't care if we have like 3 fans. It makes no difference to me. It just means a lot that we have any to begin with, and that people actually watch our games at home, or support us in any way, whether it be through Twitter, Instagram, socials, or just not any of that, just watching even. It just again, it means a lot to us because you're growing the game. Fans in general of every team, you're growing the game. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm grateful for every single fan of any team, just because for me, this game is everything to us, and the Riot's just done such a good job with it. So huge shout out to them. I feel like I don't know. I'm very grateful to be in the situation that I'm in,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful that we're able to do this. You know what I mean? Even this podcast, to have these kinds of discussions, to have these so many good teams, that to compete against. It's just really, really. It's easy to kind of take it for granted, I guess, and I
Mm-hmm.
just don't. I think it's awesome to have that kind of not just my own fan base or our own fan base, but just the fan base of the game in general. So definitely grateful for that, and hopefully, it only grows.
Well, speaking of it growing, you guys see his Twitter right there. Follow him on Twitter, follow him on all his socials. That's going to
Yep.
wrap us up for episode 14 of Vandals. Folks, if you appreciate the content, again, as always, please engage with the channel, subscribe, like, comment, retweet, like, all of the things that you can do these days. But that's going to do it for us. We will see you next time.